He once bought a complete stranger a brand new Cadillac simply because she admired his. Elvis Presley gave away so many cars. Estimates range over 200, often buying fleets at a time. He spontaneously paid off the mortgage of a woman he'd just met after hearing about her financial struggles. The king of rock and roll once purchased Franklin D. Roosevelt's former presidential yacht for $55,000, only to donate it just months later to a children's hospital. He frequently carried thick wads of cash, handing out $100 bills to anyone who seemed like they needed help or simply caught his eye. He purchased numerous homes not just for family, but for friends and sometimes even acquaintances. One Christmas, he spent over $100,000 on cars alone as gifts. Number 7. The spontaneous home provider. Elvis Presley didn't just live in Graceland. He made sure many people around him had roofs over their heads, often purchased on a whim with staggering generosity. It wasn't just about providing basic shelter. It was often about upgrading people's lives significantly, moving them into homes they could likely never have afforded on their own. This wasn't limited to his immediate family, though they certainly benefited. His generosity extended to friends, members of his entourage, known as the Memphis Mafia, and sometimes even people he barely knew but whose circumstances touched him. One well-documented instance involved Dr. George Nicopolis, Elvis's personal physician, often referred to as Dr. Nick. Elvis learned that Dr. Nick and his family were living in a house that perhaps wasn't ideal. Without much fanfare, Elvis simply bought them a much larger, more comfortable home in a desirable Memphis neighborhood. This wasn't a loan. It was a gift. He handed over the keys, ensuring the doctor who looked after his health had a secure and pleasant place for his own family. The gesture was typical of Elvis: identify a need or a desire in someone close to him and fulfill it instantly and completely, bypassing any financial constraints the recipient might have. His parents, Vernon and Gladys, were primary beneficiaries. Early in his career, Elvis bought them a comfortable home on Audubon Drive in Memphis before purchasing the much grander Graceland mansion in 1957. Graceland itself became a haven, not just for Elvis, but for his extended family. His grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley, lived there, as did various aunts and cousins at different times. Elvis ensured they were all comfortably housed within the estate or nearby. Beyond family and key associates, members of the Memphis Mafia often found themselves recipients of extreme housing generosity. These were the guys who were his friends, bodyguards, and companions. Elvis understood their lives revolved around him, often requiring them to be available 24/7, potentially impacting their own financial stability or ability to settle down conventionally. Charlie Hodge, a longtime friend and stage assistant, was gifted a house. Others received down payments, or Elvis simply covered their rent or mortgage payments for extended periods. He wanted his inner circle close and comfortable, and using his wealth to provide housing was a direct way to achieve that. There are also stories, perhaps less formally documented but persistent, of Elvis helping acquaintances or even employees with housing issues. If he heard someone was facing eviction or struggling with a down payment, it wasn't uncommon for him to step in. He might instruct his father Vernon, who managed many of his finances, or his associates like Joe Esposito, to take care of it. Taking care of it often meant paying off debts, providing funds for deposit, or, in some cases, outright buying a modest home for someone he felt deserved a break. the scale of this generosity was significant. It wasn't just one or two instances. It was a pattern of behavior throughout his years of peak fame and fortune. He saw housing as a fundamental need and a symbol of security, and he readily shared his ability to provide it. He didn't seem to expect repayment or even excessive gratitude. The act of giving itself appeared to be the primary motivation. Imagine being a friend or employee, worrying about rent, and suddenly being handed the keys to a house, free and clear. For many recipients, these weren't just houses. They were life-altering gifts that provided stability and opportunity, all flowing from Elvis's spontaneous desire to share his extraordinary success. He literally turned homeownership dreams into reality for dozens of people in his orbit. Number 6. Jewelry J. Giver. Rings, necklaces, and watches for almost everyone. Elvis Presley's personal style was flashy and flamboyant, characterized by elaborate jumpsuits, capes, belts, and a significant amount of impressive jewelry. He loved diamonds, gold, turquoise, and custom-designed pieces, often featuring symbols meaningful to him, like the TCB, taking care of business, lightning-bolt logo he created for his entourage. But Elvis didn't just wear this jewelry. He gave it away with astonishing frequency and spontaneity. Rings, necklaces, bracelets, and expensive watches were treated almost like party favors, handed out to friends, family, band members, backup singers, crew, security personnel, and sometimes complete strangers who happened to admire a piece he was wearing. The value of the jewelry he gave away over the years is estimated to be enormous, potentially running into millions of dollars in today's currency. He favored large statement pieces. Think heavy gold chains, rings with large gemstones, diamonds, rubies, sapphires, emeralds. Custom TCB necklaces, often encrusted with diamonds, and high-end watches like Roltzes and Longines. He frequently commissioned pieces specifically to give away. Lowell Hayes, a Memphis jeweler, became Elvis's go-to source, creating dozens if not hundreds of custom items over the years, many destined to be gifts. The manner of giving was often impulsive. If someone, whether a close friend or a fan he just met, commented positively on a ring he was wearing, Elvis might simply take it off his finger and hand it to them. "You like it, it's yours," was a phrase reportedly heard many times. This wasn't an exaggeration. Numerous accounts exist from recipients who experienced exactly this. Imagine admiring a dazzling diamond ring on the hand of the world's biggest star, only for him to place it in your own palm moments later. Members of his band and backup groups like the TCB Band, J.D. Sumner and the Stamps Quartet, or the Sweet Inspirations were frequent recipients. He gifted them custom TCB or TLC, tender loving care for the women, necklaces as symbols of belonging to his inner circle. These weren't cheap trinkets, they were often solid gold, sometimes diamond-studded, representing a significant monetary value and, more importantly, a personal connection to Elvis. Kathy Westmoreland, one of his backup singers, received numerous pieces of jewelry over the years. Linda Thompson and Ginger Alden, his girlfriends in later years, were showered with extravagant jewelry. It wasn't just about showing off wealth. It seemed tied to his desire to share his good fortune and express appreciation or affection in a tangible way. He saw something beautiful, bought it, or had it made, enjoyed it himself perhaps, and then passed it on. There are stories of him buying multiple expensive items at once. Several rings, a handful of watches, explicitly intending to give them away soon after. He might carry pieces around in his pockets, ready for an opportune moment to gift someone. During concerts, especially in Las Vegas, the jewelry giveaways could become part of the spectacle. While performing, he might take off a scarf and give it to a fan, a common practice. Less common but documented were instances where he might gift a ring or another piece of jewelry to someone in the audience or backstage. He once reportedly gave a large, expensive ring to boxer Muhammad Ali when they met, a gesture of mutual respect between two larger-than-life figures. Even people providing services weren't excluded. Police officers providing security details, hotel staff who were particularly helpful, doctors, dentists, anyone who made a positive impression on him might find themselves the surprise recipient of a valuable piece of jewelry. The sheer volume was staggering. At the time of his death, his own collection was still substantial, but countless other pieces were already out in the world, worn by people from all walks of life who had crossed paths with the king and received a sparkling memento of his generosity. He didn't just wear his wealth, he literally handed it out, piece by valuable piece. Number 5. The instant debt demolisher. Beyond tangible gifts like cars and jewelry, Elvis Presley often wielded his financial power to solve problems for people, sometimes complete strangers, in profoundly evil ways. One of the most striking examples of this was his willingness to spontaneously pay off people's debts, particularly mortgages. Imagine the weight of a mortgage, a long-term financial burden representing years of payments being lifted in an instant by someone you barely know. Elvis did this. Perhaps the most famous story involves a woman named Janelle McComb, a Tupelo resident and longtime friend who became a sort of unofficial keeper of Elvis history in his birthplace. While this relationship was closer than a stranger, another well-known account illustrates the spontaneity with strangers. According to multiple sources, including members of his entourage, Elvis was once introduced to a woman who worked at or was visiting Graceland. During their brief conversation, the woman mentioned offhand the stress she was under due to her outstanding home mortgage payments. She likely wasn't asking for help, just making conversation or sharing a common worry. Elvis reportedly listened intently. Shortly after their conversation, without telling the woman what he was doing, he instructed his father, Vernon Presley, or an aide, to find out the exact amount owed on her mortgage and to pay it off completely, just like that. The woman later received notification from her bank that her mortgage had been paid in full. The benefactor was Elvis. The shock and relief must have been overwhelming. This wasn't a small sum. Paying off a mortgage even decades ago represented a huge financial commitment. For Elvis, it was an amount he could easily afford, and the impulse to eliminate someone's financial distress was something he acted upon readily. This wasn't necessarily a calculated act for publicity. It often happened privately. He seemed genuinely moved by people's struggles, especially financial ones, perhaps remembering his own family's poverty during his childhood in Tupelo. Having experienced lack firsthand, he seemed to derive satisfaction from using his immense wealth to alleviate that same pressure for others. There are other similar accounts, though details can vary. Stories circulate about him paying off car loans, covering large medical bills, or settling other significant debts for people he encountered. If he learned a friend or employee was in financial trouble, facing repossession or struggling with bills after an illness or accident, his response was often immediate financial intervention. He wouldn't offer a loan. He'd provide the money needed, often more than requested, to resolve the issue entirely. This generosity extended to his inner circle as well. Members of the Memphis Mafia knew that if they faced a financial crisis, Elvis was likely to step in. While this could create complex dynamics within the group, the underlying impulse was consistently generous. He covered hospital bills for members or their families, paid for expensive surgeries, and ensured that those loyal to him didn't suffer debilitating financial hardship if he could prevent it. The act of paying off a stranger's mortgage, however, stands out because it transcends the bounds of friendship or loyalty. It speaks to an impulsive empathy, a desire to make a dramatic positive impact on someone's life simply because he could. He saw a problem, financial worry etched on someone's face or expressed in conversation, and he possessed the immediate solution. He deployed his wealth like a superpower erasing debt and providing peace of mind with a quiet instruction to his financial managers. For the recipients, it was a life-changing event, a burden lifted seemingly out of nowhere by the king of rock and roll. Number 4. The Presidential Yacht Philanthropist. Elvis Presley's generosity often took grand and sometimes unusual forms. One of the most remarkable examples involved a historic vessel, the USS Potomac, which had served as President Franklin D. Roosevelt's official presidential yacht, often called the Floating White House. FDR used it extensively for fishing trips, hosting dignitaries including King George VI and Queen Elizabeth of England, and reportedly even planning strategy during World War II. After Roosevelt's death and various changes in ownership, the yacht eventually fell into disrepair and obscurity. In early 1964, the Potomac was up for sale. Danny Thomas, the entertainer and founder of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, saw an opportunity. He hoped to acquire the yacht, restore it, and use it as a national shrine or museum piece to raise funds for his hospital, which specialized in treating catastrophic childhood diseases, particularly leukemia, at no cost to the families. St. Jude was a cause close to Elvis's heart. He had performed benefit concerts for the hospital and felt a strong connection to its mission. Learning of Danny Thomas's interest and the potential benefit to St. Jude, Elvis stepped in. In February 1964, Elvis purchased the USS Potomac for $55,000, a considerable sum at the time equivalent to hundreds of thousands of dollars today. His intention wasn't to keep the yacht for himself, despite its historical significance and luxurious past. His sole purpose in buying it was to donate it. However, his initial plan was slightly different. He offered the yacht to the March of Dimes, another charity focused on public health. They reportedly declined, perhaps due to the significant restoration and upkeep costs the vessel would require. Undeterred, Elvis pivoted. He then formally offered the yacht to Danny Thomas for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. In a ceremony held on February 13, 1964, aboard the yacht itself, while it was docked in Long Beach, California, Elvis officially presented the USS Potomac to Danny Thomas. The event garnered significant media attention. Pierre was the world's biggest entertainer, gifting a former presidential yacht to support a children's hospital. It was a grand gesture that highlighted both Elvis's immense generosity and his commitment to St. Jude. Unfortunately, the story didn't end quite as hoped. St. Jude, despite appreciating the gift, also recognized the prohibitive costs associated with maintaining and utilizing the aging yacht effectively for fundraising. Managing the vessel proved to be a financial drain rather than a fundraising asset. After trying for some months, St. Jude quietly sold the yacht later that same year for $65,000. The proceeds, of course, went to the hospital, fulfilling the spirit of Elvis's donation, but the dream of the Potomac itself, serving as a floating fundraiser, didn't materialize as envisioned. The yacht passed through several more hands, at one point even being seized in a drug bust, before eventually being restored in the 1980s and 1990s. It is now docked in Oakland, California, fully restored and operating as a museum and National Historic Landmark, finally fulfilling a version of the vision Danny Thomas and Elvis Presley had touched upon decades earlier. Despite the logistical challenges that followed the donation, Elvis's act itself remains a powerful testament to his philanthropy. He saw an opportunity to leverage his wealth for a cause he believed in, using a unique, high-profile asset, a former presidential yacht, as the vehicle for his generosity. He spent a significant sum, not for personal gain or pleasure, but with the express purpose of giving it away to help sick children. It showcased his willingness to think big and act decisively when it came to charitable giving, solidifying his connection to St. Jude and leaving behind another incredible story of his open-handedness. Number 3. The Cadillac King. Cars for friends, family, and fortunate strangers. Perhaps the most legendary aspect of Elvis Presley's generosity was his penchant for giving away cars, particularly Cadillacs. Elvis loved cars, owning a stunning collection himself, but he seemed to derive even greater pleasure from gifting them. The sheer number of vehicles he gave away is staggering, with estimates often cited as being anywhere from over 100 to potentially more than 200 cars throughout his life. Cadillacs were his signature gift car, symbolizing luxury and success, but he also gave away Lincolns, Mercedes-Benzes, pickup trucks, and even Rolls-Royces. The recipients were incredibly varied. His family members were naturally included. He bought numerous cars for his father Vernon, his grandmother Minnie Mae, and other relatives. He ensured those closest to him traveled in style and comfort. His inner circle, the Memphis Mafia, were also frequent beneficiaries. Guys like Red West, Sonny West, Joe Esposito, Lamar Fike, and Charlie Hodge received multiple cars over the years. Sometimes these were rewards for loyalty, sometimes gifts for special occasions like Christmas or birthdays, and sometimes just because Elvis felt like it. He'd often buy cars in batches, heading to a Memphis dealership like Madison Cadillac and purchasing half a dozen or more vehicles at once, designating recipients on the spot. His generosity extended to his band members, backup singers, and other professional associates. The Sweet Inspirations, Kathy Westmoreland, members of the TCB band, many received cars as tokens of appreciation for their work and friendship. He bought cars for his doctors, his dentists, his jewelers, and even karate instructors. But the most captivating stories involve Elvis giving cars to complete strangers. The most famous incident occurred in Memphis in 1975. Elvis was at a Cadillac dealership, likely buying cars for himself or his usual circle. Minnie L. Person, an African-American woman who worked as a teller at a local bank, happened to be outside the dealership, looking through the window and admiring a beautiful new gold and white 1975 Cadillac, Eldorado. Elvis noticed her admiring the car. He struck up a conversation, asking her if she liked it. She confirmed she did, remarking on its beauty. Elvis reportedly asked her favorite color combination, which happened to be the gold and white she was looking at. Then, to her utter astonishment, he walked her inside the dealership, told the salesman she was buying the car, and paid for it in full right then and there. He arranged for the paperwork, and handed the keys to a stunned many person. She drove away in a brand new luxury car, gifted to her by the king of rock and roll, simply because she happened to admire it at the right moment. This act became legendary, symbolizing his impulsive and almost unbelievable generosity. There are other similar stories. On tour, he sometimes gifted cars to local police officers who had provided him with security escorts. In Denver, Colorado, in 1976, he famously gifted new Lincoln Continentals to several Denver police officers, including Captain Jerry Kennedy, who had overseen his security detail. He appreciated their professionalism and decided to show his gratitude in a typically grand Elvis fashion. Christmas was often a peak time for car gibbos. Reports from his later years detail Christmas shopping sprees, where he would spend over $100,000 in a single day just on cars to give as presents. He seemed to revel in the surprise and joy his gifts brought. The cost was secondary. The act of giving, especially something as significant and life-changing as a new car, was the main event. This wasn't just about displaying wealth, it was an ingrained pattern. He saw cars as symbols of freedom, success, and the American dream, things he had achieved beyond measure and wanted to share. Whether it was ensuring his friends had reliable transportation, rewarding loyalty, or acting on a spontaneous impulse towards a stranger, Elvis used cars as a primary currency of his generosity. Driving around Memphis, it wasn't uncommon to see people driving Cadillacs, known to be gifts from the king, tangible proof of his extraordinary and often impulsive open-handedness. He wasn't just the king of rock and roll. For many, he was the undisputed king of Cadillacs. Number 2. The $100 handshake. Elvis Presley's generosity wasn't always about extravagant items like cars or houses. He was also known for carrying large amounts of cash and distributing it freely, often in the form of crisp $100 bills, to people he encountered in his daily life. This wasn't planned philanthropy. It was spontaneous, personal, and frequent, becoming one of his signature traits. Remember, a $100 bill in the 1960s and 1970s had significantly more purchasing power than it does today, making these handouts quite substantial. Members of his entourage consistently reported that Elvis rarely carried a wallet in the conventional sense. Instead, he often had thick wads of cash, sometimes thousands of dollars, stuffed into his pockets or carried for him by an aide. He seemed to view money as a tool to bring immediate happiness or relief, and he deployed it liberally. The recipients of these cash gifts were incredibly diverse. It could be anyone whose path he crossed. Waitresses, hotel maids, gas station attendants, bellhops, skycaps at the airport, people providing everyday services might find themselves receiving a $100 bill as a tip, far exceeding the standard amount. For Elvis, it was a way of showing appreciation and acknowledging people often overlooked. He seemed to enjoy the element of surprise and the visible delight or relief his unexpected generosity brought. It wasn't just service workers. If he encountered someone on the street who looked down on their luck, or if he heard a brief story of hardship, he wouldn't hesitate to peel off one or several $100 bills and press them into the person's hand. There are numerous anecdotes of him stopping his car to give money to someone panhandling, or quietly slipping cash to someone he noticed crying or looking distressed. He might ask them what was wrong, and if the problem seemed solvable with money, rent, payment, grocery bills, a medical expense, he would often provide it on the spot, no questions asked. Sometimes the gestures were even larger. He might cover the entire bill for everyone dining in a restaurant section, or buy out a movie theater screening so he and his friends could watch privately, often tipping the staff generously afterward. He carried cash specifically for these moments. This habit stemmed partly from his own impoverished upbringing. Having known financial struggle intimately, he seemed unable to ignore it in others once he had the means to help. He understood the immediate impact that cash could have on someone's life, providing relief from pressing worries. It was a direct, tangible way to share his immense success. There was also an element of wanting to be liked and to create positive interactions. Handing out $100 bills certainly made people happy and left a lasting impression. But accounts from those close to him suggest the motivation was often genuinely altruistic, driven by an impulsive empathy and a desire to fix problems he encountered. He didn't usually seek attention for these acts. They often happened quickly and quietly, a personal transaction between him and the recipient. Of course, this practice wasn't without its complexities. It could attract people seeking handouts, and it blurred the lines between generosity and perhaps an attempt to buy affection or smooth over difficulties. However, the sheer consistency and spontaneity of these cash gifts, extending even to complete strangers with no expectation of anything in return, paint a picture of someone who genuinely wanted to use his wealth to brighten people's days and alleviate their burdens. It was generosity in its most immediate form, cash in hand, delivered directly by the king. Number 1. The quiet charity champion. While Elvis Presley's spontaneous, flashy acts of generosity like giving away cars and jewelry are legendary, he was also a significant supporter of established charities, often preferring to do so without excessive fanfare. His connection to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis is well known, thanks in part to the high-profile donation of the USS Potomac yacht. But his charitable activities extended beyond that single famous gift and demonstrated a consistent, albeit sometimes private, commitment to various causes throughout his career. His support for St. Jude began early on. Founded by entertainer Danny Thomas in 1962, the hospital's mission to treat children with catastrophic diseases, regardless of their family's ability to pay, resonated with Elvis. Memphis was his home, and St. Jude quickly became a vital part of the community. Elvis performed benefit concerts, made direct financial donations, and encouraged others to support the hospital. He understood the power of his endorsement and lent his name and resources to help the pioneering institution get established and grow. His connection was personal. He visited the hospital and felt a genuine empathy for the children being treated there. Another significant, though less frequently publicized, charitable act involved the USS Arizona Memorial in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. In the early 1960s, efforts were underway to fund the construction of a permanent memorial over the sunken battleship USS Arizona, honoring the servicemen killed during the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. Fundraising had stalled, and the project was in jeopardy. Elvis, who had spent time in Hawaii filming movies like Blue Hawaii and felt a connection to the islands, learned about the funding shortfall. Encouraged by his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis decided to help. On March 25, 1961, he performed a special benefit concert at Block Arena in Pearl Harbor. It was his first live concert performance in several years since returning from the Army, and drew immense attention. Elvis wore his famous gold Lane jacket and put on a spectacular show. All proceeds from the concert, along with additional personal donations from Elvis, went directly to the USS Arizona Memorial Building Fund. The concert was a massive success, raising over $64,000, a huge sum at the time, equivalent to well over $500,000 today. This amount provided a crucial boost, essentially ensuring the completion of the memorial, which was dedicated the following year. Elvis's concert is widely credited with saving the project and helping create one of America's most important national shrines. He sought minimal personal publicity for this, focusing attention instead on the cause itself. Beyond these major contributions, Elvis regularly donated to various local Memphis charities and community organizations. He supported initiatives related to poverty, relief, healthcare, and youth programs. Often, these donations were made quietly through his father Vernon or his business office, without public announcements. He might sponsor local sports teams, contribute to church building funds, or help families affected by fires or other tragedies. If a need within the Memphis community came to his attention, he was likely to respond with financial assistance. He also demonstrated a form of generosity through his performances. Throughout his career, he performed numerous benefit concerts for various causes besides St. Jude and the USS Arizona Memorial. While these concerts were also part of his professional life, choosing to designate the proceeds for charity was a consistent pattern. This quieter side of Elvis's philanthropy shows a depth beyond impulsive giveaways. It reflects a sense of civic responsibility and a desire to support institutions and causes that provided long-term benefits to the community and the nation. While he clearly enjoyed the immediate gratification of personal gift-giving, he also understood the importance of supporting organized efforts, addressing significant issues like children's health, historical commemoration, and community welfare. These acts, often carried out without the same level of public spectacle as his car or jewelry gifts, form a crucial part of the picture of Elvis Presley's incredible, multifaceted generosity